What's up, y'all? This is JLP, the host of Mastering Single and Relationships. I hope that all is well with you and your loved ones. Y'all, I'm so excited for tonight's episode because on tonight's episode, we will be talking about part two of the truth about the counterfeit, right? Truth about counterfeits. And if you did not catch part one, I'm going to go ahead and link that video below. You're listening via our podcast, I'm going to go ahead and as well, just share a link of that episode. Now, y'all, I'm not going to go ahead and repeat myself. So again, if you did not catch part one, make sure that you go and play it back after watching part two, because I know some of you are looking at this video right now and you have no clue what I'm talking about in regards to part one. But since you're already here, just stay tuned and just focus along, because honestly, y'all, tonight's episode is going to bless you. Now, many people, when they're talking about counterfeits, I feel like, we only signal the warning signs. We only tell you to, again, avoid counterfeits of all kinds. And if you perhaps, have, dated a few counterfeits, or perhaps you have received a few counterfeit opportunities and you fall into that trap again, that's good. But I feel like many times that we miss the mark when it comes to us highlighting to you some truths that the counterfeit actually reveals that will help you to properly discern the one that God has for you. And I'm gonna give you guys a few examples so you could see what I mean by how can the counterfeit properly help you to discern the one that God has for you. Now, here's example number one. Let's say if you're a young woman and you're watching this episode right now, maybe the past relationships that you had, you notice that the guys that you dated, they were all tall, they all had a good sense of humor, but however, they did not have a true walk with the Lord. Perhaps they go to church, right? Perhaps they're a church boy, they go to church every Sunday, but you can detect that they don't have a relationship with God. They're not sold out to Jesus. And there's a difference between actually going to church and being sold out to Jesus. Now, you did notice, right, that this person, these individuals, these guys that you dated in the past, they had some good qualities. Like I just mentioned, they were all tall, they all had good sense of humor. But the only downside we would say is that, again, their relationship with God was not there. Now, this indicated to you that they were a counterfeit, because again, if you are a Christian listening to this episode, you know that it is not good for us to be unequally yoked. And I'm not even going to go ahead and further talk about unequally yoked, because it is to our own benefit that God himself said for us in the Bible not to be unequally yoked. And so it is truly the main thing for every believer to already understand. If you are already dating somebody that you know is not a believer, is not a follower of Jesus Christ, that's already a red flag. That's an easy way for you to see that you're already dating a counterfeit. And so that is why I don't want to go ahead back to that route. But on tonight's episode, I want you to see here, again, because that person or these persons that you dated in the past did not have a walk with the Lord, that showed you, man, this cannot be the person that God has for me. But at times you push away now the good qualities. You forgot that these people that you dated, again, they were all tall, they all had a good sense of humor. And so I would say to you to really pay attention to that. Okay, really pay attention to that. Many times the devil doesn't know everything concerning what God has for us, but he do know certain details. And this is why it's easy sometimes for the devil to trap some people with what looks like the promise, but it's not necessarily the promise. Now, how can you now then properly discern the person that God has for you? Again, like we said in the previous part, right? Part one of the truth about counterfeits, you again measure their fruits, you measure their character. If you now see that you are approached by another individual that so happens to be tall, that so happens to have a good sense of humor, but again does not have a true walk with the Lord, that's already a red flag to you. That's not the person that God has for you. That's a counterfeit. But however, if you notice that they are tall, they have a good sense of humor, plus they truly have a sold out life to Jesus Christ, that is an indicator to you this potentially can in fact be the one that God has for you. And that is so important. I want you to understand that there are markers that the counterfeits actually leaves for you to properly discern the one that God has for you. And this not even when it comes to romantic relationships or potential suitors, but it also comes when it also is the same scenario when it comes to certain opportunities. There's some opportunities that comes your way and it seems too good to be true. And unfortunately, at times these opportunities were rip-off opportunities, but there is a truth to that. For example, perhaps it is an opportunity for you to do something that you really do desire to do one day, but unfortunately it ended up again not being genuine. There still, in fact, can be an indicator where God is going to lead you in the near future. And so these things are important for you to pay attention to take note of. Many times we feel as if, the counterfeit will be completely the opposite of the real person or the real opportunity that the Lord has for us, but that is not always the case. Again, I'm going to repeat this one more time because I really want to make sure that you guys are understanding what it is that I'm saying here. The counterfeit will have markers that will help you to properly discern the person that God has for you, the opportunity that God has for you, and where God is leading you. But however, what is always going to distinguish the counterfeit between the counterfeit and the real thing, again, it's always character. Their character will always 100% be godly. It will always not have any compromise within it, deception within it. And I'm going to give you guys an example. If you read First Samuel chapter 16, it talks about how Samuel ends up anointing David, right, to be king. And before that ended up happening, Samuel noticed many of David's brothers, right? But however, it was God that indicated to Samuel the brothers of David that he thought, could be king because of their appearance, their stature. God says, yo, this is not this is not the person that I have anointed to be king. And the reason why God says this is because God was looking at the heart. God was looking at the character. Although the Bible is not specific to detail to us whether the other sons of Jesse were godly, the other sons of Jesse were humble, we can already see the implication right there is that only David's heart was truly for God. The others perhaps had a fear of God, but maybe they didn't have a deep walk with the Lord, an intimate walk with the Lord. And because God was already able to detect that David's heart was for him, he noticed that David was the right fit. Now, the thing is, when people read that particular passage, that particular story, they end up always saying, like, again, God does not judge outward appearance, he judges the heart, which is true. But they seem to downplay when it comes to appearance. If appearance was not important or did not matter at all, the Bible in that same particular passage, First Samuel chapter 16, would have never even tell us that David was very handsome in appearance. Okay, and why am I bringing this up is because many times I feel that people tend to try to settle for less when it comes to their preferences or a certain desire that they have, a certain preferences that they have. For example, I mentioned that perhaps if you're a young woman and you're watching this episode, the past guys that you dated, they all happen to be tall, and maybe that is a preference for you. Maybe you like to date tall people. And perhaps you also like those who are very athletic. But then again, you're saying to yourself, those who happen to have been tall and athletic in the past that I dated, none of them walked with the Lord. And so you try your best to say, avoid all tall guys because all tall guys are not godly. All tall guys are not faithful and so forth. And that is not always the case. And I don't want us to have that type of mentality to think, oh, because all of these people were tall and they all and every tall person is a counterfeit. I hope I'm making sense by the grace of God. I pray that you guys are understanding this. And so it's very important to as well note that, to not, settle for less when it comes to your preferences. Yes, preferences is not everything, but at the same time, if you know that, for example, you're not attracted to this person, don't force yourself to be attracted to this person just because you notice this person's seems to fit what it is that a godly person seems to be or whatever. you know what I'm saying? And so it's very important for us to know that as well. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to just be that person is tall, have a good sense of humor, but maybe that person, for example, the people that you dated in the past, maybe they were great with children, and maybe they were, very driven, right, goal oriented, but however, they were not punctual. They were not punctual, or maybe they were like conceited, self-centered. You can see if a person is conceited and self-centered, that is not a fruit of the spirit. That is not a godly characteristic trait. And perhaps that could be like, again, the red flag that this is not the person that God has for you. Because the way that I'm measuring all of this as well is that I'm measuring it in accordance to, again, the fruits of the spirit. Like we said, measure them by their fruit. You don't want to waste time dating someone just merely when it comes to their potential. Because again, potential is not everything if that person is not working towards to actually become that person, right? And so that's very important as well for us to take note of. And so, in part one, I didn't go ahead and address that, but I wanted to go ahead and address all of these in part two, because again, I feel like a lot of times people just, they think as if God is not wanting to give them the ideal person that they always, again, were praying about, because they believe that God, again, is just so merely focused on character, and that, it is wrong for us to have preferences and so forth, but that is not always the case. But again, like I mentioned, it's so important as well, for you to not, settle just for looks, but making sure that you are indeed paying attention to character, because character is what you should always pay attention to make that final judgment, to help you to make the right choice when it comes to those that, again, you see yourself being with. And the reason why I'm saying this is because many times when it comes to dating, people want to just, you know, not take it seriously because they're like, it's just dating. But no, I really encourage you guys, especially those of you who are believers, who are Christian, to date with purpose. Because even if you are even having this idea to date, or are willing to date, or are willing to be married one day, that shows that you, again, are serious about marriage. You're serious about commitment. And if you are serious about marriage and commitment, you need to be serious as well when it comes to dating. And not just date just for fun, or just date to be dating because you see everybody in your proximity is dating, but you're dating because you find yourself to be in a season where you are ready for that chapter of your life. And so I hope that you guys were greatly blessed and encouraged by this episode. This episode was not a long one, but I truly believe, again, if you, again, pay attention to these markers, you will be successful as well in properly discerning the one that the Lord has for you, properly discerning the right opportunities, and all that God has set aside just for you. And I hope that you guys could, again, just play back these parts when it comes to the truth about counterfeits, because I believe that as you, again, just take note of what it is that we shared by the grace of God this season, for those of you who are in high expectation that God would, again, connect you with the right one, that you will be able to properly, again, discern whomever that is, and you will be able to, again, take note and see how, even when it came to those broken relationships, there were certain details that were always there, giving you hints right there of who God has for you. And to me personally, I find that very interesting. Like, even though the devil doesn't know everything, and even though these past experiences didn't play out the way that you intended for them to play out, or you were hoping or expecting for them to play out, but those details were always there to just, again, give you that, give you that hint that, man, this person that the Lord has for me, it's probable that they have these certain characteristic traits that are good characteristic traits. Now, again, before I close out this episode, I'm not saying that everybody that you dated in the past, whatever characteristic traits that they have, that your future spouse will have, but I am saying to pay attention to the good qualities that the past individuals that you dated had, because oftentimes the one that the Lord has for you, they will also carry those good qualities. They won't carry those bad qualities, but although they won't carry those bad qualities, I'm not saying that the person that you will potentially marry will not have certain type of weaknesses, because we know as human beings, we have certain we have certain weaknesses. Not everybody is perfect, only God is perfect. But at the end of the day, what will not change your mind when it comes to that individual is because you see that they truly have a deep devotion to God, and they love you as well as Christ recommends us and encourages us, and even commands us as well to love one another as ourselves, and to just again imitate him in all that we do. And so I just pray and hope that God was able to speak to you through this episode. And again, I'm praying for all of you guys, especially my singles. Again, I'm believing that God indeed will come through for you, especially those of you who have just been patient in the waiting and expecting for God to move in that area of your life. I strongly believe that indeed many of you, your breakthrough is already here in that department of your life. And I'm praying for you as well. And I'm just celebrating with you in advance. And I pray again that you guys were blessed by this episode. If you were blessed by this episode, make sure you share it with your friends. Like this on YouTube. Subscribe for more content on our channel. And y'all remember, all things are possible with Christ Jesus. Until next time, peace out. Take care.